Did you inherit $1 million from your grandparent, or are you about to become wealthy from someone else's hard work? If you say yes to these questions, this show is not for you. You, the hardworking, committed, and ambitious professional who have a 9-to-5 corporate job or a 12-hour shift worker keeping the assembly line running. Perhaps you run your gig as a freelancer, or maybe you run a small business. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Career Evangelist Podcast, where you get your weekly tips, ideas, strategies, and inspiration to find purpose in what you do so you can build a career you are passionate about and live a fulfilled life. Here is your host, Bola Alabi.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Career Evangelist Podcast. And on today's show, we have an awesome guest. We have Marcus Hamaker. Marcus is very passionate about small business, and he has over 3 decades of experience in business strategy. He has guided countless organizations toward meaningful growth and success. Marcus is known for his expertise in simplifying complex strategies. He's dedicated his career to helping companies implement practical, effective solutions that achieve results. So Marcus also runs the POV podcast. And you guys, you are going to get some valuable advice from one of the top voices in business strategies. So without keeping you guys waiting any further, I'll bring in our guest, Marcus. Hey, Marcus, what's up?
Hey man, how are you?
Awesome. Thank you for joining us here today.
Yeah,
So
thank you for
you
having me.
So you are also a podcast host, POV. Can you
Yep.
tell us a little more about your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called the POV podcast, and POV stands for Pursuit of Value. I've been in business my entire life. My father owned a construction company. So at the age of 6, I was going to work with my dad. He had a concrete construction company. So from a very early age, I had a front row seat to a family business, the good, the bad, the ugly of all that. Um, Growing up and working with my dad, I then went on and I started my own company, started a few. I love small business. When you look at the numbers in small business, there's over 35 million just in the US.
Mhm.
There's over 400 million worldwide. It's a tremendous opportunity to shape and influence the culture and people in small business. So I love small business. I think small business can be the greatest force for good in the world today if they're run appropriately. The struggle that I have, and what is a big red flag for me, is that when you look at the failure numbers of small business, 30% will fail within 2 years.
Yeah.
50% of all businesses fail within 5 years, and then 70% fail within 10 years. So when you look at the numbers of the growth of small business, on average, 4.7 million new businesses in the US start per year. So of those 4.7, 30% are going to fail within the first 2 years. So that really bothers me. I don't like that. And again, front row seat to my dad, the struggles that he had. His business lasted for 40 plus years, but it was just because my dad was a hardworking, diligent, consistent guy, but he made a ton of mistakes. So yeah, I'm very passionate about small business.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that, Marcus.
Yeah,
And you rightly pointed out those statistics about small business failures. Uh,
yeah,
but in your opinion, what are some common mistakes that you've seen entrepreneurs make that
yeah.
their business to fail?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I were to say there's one common, I don't know that that would be accurate, but there's some that looking statistically that is probably pretty good trend. I will always default back to it begins with the owner's mindset. So when you go to start a small business, why are you doing that? Often it's because, hey, I want to pave my own road, I want to create my own opportunities, or I have an expertise in an area. When I think back to why my dad started his business, he wanted more for himself and his family. He knew that if he would have stayed in his job, he would have hit the ceiling rather quickly. So he's like, you know what? I want to make my own way. So I want to start my own business, even with all the risks involved with that. So to answer your question, my opinion is that the owner mindset is the key factor in success or failure. And I'll give you an example on that. If you have a mindset of, I want to start a business so I can just have a better lifestyle, I think that's a mistake. Many businesses are started as a lifestyle business, meaning I want to start a business just so I can earn a little bit more money, have a little bit more freedom, exercise some of my gifts and talents. And then, you know what? That's really all the effort I'm going to put in. And then you run your finances, your personal finances and your business finances together. And then it just turns into this commingled mess. If the owner starts out in business and says, hey, I'm going to create a growth business. I'm going to be diligent and disciplined on how I invest in it. I'm going to keep my personal finances separate from my business finances. And I want to create a machine that will run without me and it will grow and scale as I want it to. See, two very different mindsets. And so from those two mindsets, oftentimes what happens on the lifestyle side is that you don't manage your finances well, which then leads to cash flow issues, which then leads to the inability to grow and scale. You often lose focus on working on the right things, whereas a growth mindset is very strategic in nature. You really focus on, okay, I'm gonna play in this market and I'm gonna provide this service and this product, and I'm gonna do it in this way. And it's very methodical and it's very, very strategic on how you execute it. And so it's really two different mindsets. And my years of working with small businesses, even today as a consultant for small businesses and larger businesses, whether it's a $1 million business or a $3 billion business, you still run into a lot of the same things. And so it's really interesting. But back to your question, um, it's starting with mindset, and then from there, what are the things that trip you up along the way because of that mindset? And so oftentimes it's cash flow, it's not being able to lead people well, not being able to manage a lot on your plate, not being able to focus on what's most important. So it's just it's a lot.
Okay, I think you've mentioned a lot, actually, Marco. And I'm taking notes. You said something about focus, financial
Hmm.
strategy, leadership, and you said something about creating a machine, which I think is
Yeah.
putting a system that will work to make the business grow. But people out there, they may be wondering, what exactly do you mean by owner's mindset and how
Hmm.
can they cultivate this mindset? Can you
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, I can. So there's really one main thing when it comes to that is a business inherently is its own entity. So if I were to start a business tomorrow, I'm gonna set up a separate entity. It's gonna be its own existing being, right? You set up, you get a tax ID number, it's gonna be an LLC or an S corporation. So it's a living, breathing organism, this entity that you set up. Oftentimes with the owner mindset, what happens is the owner believes that they are the business. And in some cases, I understand that because it's the owner that has the expertise, it's the owner that has the contacts, it's the owner that has the creativity. However, if you believe that you are the business, then I believe that that's going to lead you down some paths, which I talked about previously, whether it be financial management, leadership development, customer interaction, that's going to lead the business off track because your business will go how you go. And what I've seen in business through the years is that the business will take on the culture of the personality of the leader, right? So if the owner is a very negative or very outgoing person, the culture of the company will kind of mirror how the leader is. And so the mindset of the business owner is very critical. It's how do you perceive yourself in the business? Are you two separate entities, or do you think that you are the business? So however you think and go, that's how the business is going to go. And I've worked for people like that, that they're such a strong personality that the business is a reflection of their personality, and it's really chaotic for the employees, and it creates a lot of issues.
Okay, good. So, what, in your opinion, are some top skills that people need to develop in order to have that strategic thinking capability? Because you talk a lot about strategy, and
Hmm.
people out there may be wondering, how can I become more strategic?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it's always going to start with how do you perceive yourself in the business, and let's say somebody listens to this podcast and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to start thinking differently about my business, and I want to define and grow a growth business as opposed to just a lifestyle business. I would say foundationally, you need to understand the difference between the two. Shameless plug, I've got on my podcast, I've got an episode that talks about the differences between a growth business and a lifestyle business. Um, from there, it's really about developing a strategy of where do you want your business to go? So there's a vision component, there's a daily mission component, and then within that mission and vision, what are you doing each and every day to accomplish that, right? And oftentimes, what happens is you get so busy doing your day-to-day stuff in your business that you're not executing against a strategic plan that's actually taking you towards the vision that you created for your company. One of the things that we do here at the company that I currently manage is every single week we have a meeting where we talk about what we're doing each day and is it aligned with the business's strategic plan. So, an example, if part of our strategic plan is to diversify our revenue,
Mhm.
what are we doing each day to make sure that we're diversifying our revenue? Well, from a business development standpoint, we are actually reaching out and interacting with industries and vertical markets that we want to be in. So we're not just, staying in the same lane we're always in. We're actually breaking out of what we normally do and approaching different industries. And so what do? We build a strategy for that specific industry, and then we're executing against that each and every day. It sounds simple, but it's really not. I mean, if you don't have a plan to execute against, then how do you know what you're doing each day is actually moving the business forward?
Yeah. So, what are some industries that you currently serve?
Yeah, so our company was born out of the automotive industry. That's where we've lived for quite some time. The automotive industry is a wonderful industry. It's growing, specifically here in the Southeast where I'm at. However, we've learned that if there's a downturn in the automotive industry, that's really painful for us as a company. So we're looking to get into the construction industry. We're looking to get into the data center industry. We're looking at industries that have a pretty significant growth curve, and then obviously anything in manufacturing. So yes, we've been in this lane of automotive slash mobility for many years, and we've been successful, but we don't want to just stay there. We want to be able to take our value proposition that we currently have and then tailor it to a different industry. And it's been good for us because it's caused us to really look in the mirror, which every small business should do. Are we actually adding value? What can we do better? What can we come up with that will create additional value for this new industry? So it's been a really good exercise.
No, that's good. And I think I agree with what you just said about adding value, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, your clients, they pay for the value that you are adding.
Yeah.
Now, let's say there's someone out there, they may be wondering, how can I employ Marcus's service? Can you walk us through the process of client intake in your organization? Let's say a company out there, they are struggling, they want to get
Hmm.
that growth mode, and they came to you. What and what
Yeah.
tell them?
Yeah, so the company that I manage, it's called Boost USA. It's it's a German company. It's spelled BUST, which is kind of
Yeah.
strange, but it's a play on words. Typically, how we interface with new customers is number one, we want to always be educating the marketplace. So we want to be a thought leader and be educating the industry, the marketplace on really valuable things. So we're going to always be educating on organizational alignment. What does that mean? What's the significance for employees in terms of role and responsibility? So we're always wanting to educate. From that, if we are able to get in front of a customer and they are interested in our services, we will always do a 1 hour assessment. And that's where we sit down with a customer and we just talk about pain points. What are the pain points that you have in your business? Well, let's use an example. Maybe you don't have a really good sales process. So new business comes in and what happens next? Whose responsibility is to get the vendor set up? Okay, what about finance? Okay, what about, who's going to take it over once the salesman passes it off? You'd be surprised on how many companies don't have a really good sales process. And so if that's a pain point, we would sit down with them and say, okay, we're going to develop a sales process for you. And then we would create it with input from them. We would get stakeholder buy-in. So obviously, we're going to want to talk to finance. We're going to want to talk to the sales department, the marketing department. And then from there, we create the process. And then we come back and we actually train the company on this process because we don't want a band-aid. That's not valuable. We want to create a value-added process that is sustainable, that will then add value. So the next time they onboard a customer, that it's just seamless. See, again, and that's what I'm saying, that you build this machine. And so a really good growth company is a company that has a lot of internal infrastructure and process that just it's a machine that goes. A customer comes in, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A new employee comes in, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You build a machine within the machine. Next thing you know, you've got a business that is autonomous. It's just rolling. And that's how you scale, really, because what a lot of people lose sight of is that, okay, if you get more business, that means more emails, more transactions, more communication, more of everything, right?
Right.
A lot of times companies lose sight of, what does it mean to grow? Well, growing is a lot because there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be in place for that company to grow effectively and efficiently.
No, that's good. So I think based on what you explained to us, managing uh, your clients, I think it's a complex process. It's not,
Hmm.
you explain all the different aspects of business. So how do you exactly interface? Do you go to your customer side or do they come to you or do you do it like a Zoom call like we are doing right now?
Yeah. It's really all the above. So oftentimes you can't you, you need to be on site. I mean, that's always just good value, right? So if we have a consultant, a project manager that is working on a project for a company or working within a company, our consultant will actually go on site, but we also have Teams calls, Zoom calls. We can do a lot virtually, but for the beginning of any engagement, it's really important to be face to face. We really believe that it builds rapport. You get an understanding of the company culture because that's really not only is it valuable, but it's really important because you want to be able to create a process that's going to fit within that culture. You can't just throw anything at it, right? So it's super important.
Okay, can you share maybe one success story with us?
Yeah, we've got a recent one. Um, we were hired by a local company, which is a global company with where we're at, and they wanted help with a certification. It had to do with data security. And we came in and we built a scope of work for them and we started and we were on the job for about 2 weeks. And within that 2 week time frame, they came back and said, "Hey, you guys have been doing such a good job and provided so much value to us in this short time that we want to now provide even more opportunity for you." So we actually got invited to another department within that company, and we're meeting with them on Friday to develop even more scope to help their internal process creation. So that was a great success story. Then another one, we're this is another Fortune 500 company that we're working with here in the state of South Carolina. Same thing. We were brought in to run a specific project for them. And because we did such a good job, they came back about 2 weeks ago and asked us for additional scope. And so that's a testament to our approach because we're very methodical. We treat everything, we view everything through a project management lens. And I think that that's why we're so good at what we do, because as a really good project manager, you have to have your eyes on everything and your fingers on the pulse of everything. You have to get stakeholder buy-in. You have to track, you have to report, you have to have KPIs, and we approach everything that way. Very robust.
Absolutely. So I know you've been saying we. That means
Yeah.
you yourself and your team. And I want
Mhm.
to hear from you. What are some traits that you value in your team members?
Yeah. My team, man, they're just all super genuine people. And I'm saying that from a genuine heart that um these people, they're about relationship. They understand the importance of it. They understand that without relationship, really everything is just noise, you know? And so they approach everything like, hey, I want to get to know you as a person, and then now I want to get to know what's causing you issues. How can I help? And that's the key, is that they really understand the relationship side. And my perspective, if you're a business owner, if 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 you struggle with relationship, that's where I would start. If you're struggling with your business, I would look in the mirror and say, hey, is it me? Am
Mm,
I the problem? And really look at understanding on what it means to have a genuine relational attitude towards your customers and then also towards your employees, because that is gold. You can't put a price on that.
this is good. So
Yeah.
on this show, I try to learn from people. And you, our guest today, we want to know your inspiration for
Mm-hmm.
you to pursue a career, a business that specializes in strategy and business growth. Why is that important to you, Marcus?
Because for me, that's the foundation, right? I mean, I've had a varied career. I grew up in construction. I did secondary education for a while. I worked in the data center industry. I worked in the HVAC, indoor air quality industry. I've had a very diverse career.
Mhm.
Consistent through every business I've ever been a part of is the foundational concept of uh, business strategy. Like if you could have the best product out there, and if you don't have a good strategy and a good internal infrastructure to present that product to the world, you're going to fail. I mean, there's precedent for really good businesses that have failed because they didn't keep their eye on what was valuable. And what's valuable is always understanding that there's going to be a value exchange. So with my business, I'm going to if I can't provide a tangible value to my customer, then what's the point, right? So I'm very passionate about small business in general, but it's super important, and that's why I named my podcast "The Pursuit of Value," because I think as a business owner, as a business leader, every day I come into my office and I sit down, I need to be thinking about what am I going to deliver today to my employees that's going to be valuable? What am I going to deliver today to my customers that's going to be valuable? And it can be simple. It could be a hello, how are you? How was your weekend? And then notice that, I need to stick around and talk to this employee longer because they need me in that moment. Or asking the right questions to my customer. Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Are we providing value to you? I mean, be transparent, be upfront and ask the hard questions. I just think that this world today needs more genuine relationship and more genuine interaction on the business level, right? I don't want our company to ever pretend to be something that it's not. I always want to, what we are who we are, right? And so that's going to cause us to always be looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, we're going to do this the right way.
Mm. So speaking of employees, I know uh, some of my listeners they want to hear from you. How maybe they want your advice in terms of what they need to do in order to take
Hmm.
their career to the next level.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that question. Um, Number one, be teachable. And I know that that might sound a little, um, I don't know. You might hear that a lot, but on the day to day, when I see it and I interact with employees, there's a definitive line between an employee that is teachable and an employee that is not teachable. Um, in my career, I've run across a lot of employees who are too scared to acknowledge that they don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. Nobody. I'm learning every day. I'm the CEO of this company, and there's not a day that comes in here that I'm not learning at my desk or from somebody else. And I always want to have that attitude. So for anybody that's out there and they're whether they're young or old, if you're the smartest person in the room, I think you're probably in the wrong room. I
Right.
don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to always be teachable. I want
Mm.
to always be hungry to learn. And I think if you have that humble and contrite heart in that, then there's nowhere to go but up. So that would be number one, be teachable. Number two, don't be scared to ask questions of your boss, of people that are over you. Pursue knowledge, pursue experience. Understand that mistakes happen and that mistakes are the most tremendous kind of education you can ever have.
Mhm.
So those are the two things that I think for any new employee, and that's I don't want to call it a speech, but when I get new employees in, that's the first thing I tell them, man, be teachable, be humble, and understand that mistakes are gold. Mistakes are valuable if
Uh,
you learn from them.
I love those, Marcus. Be teachable. I think that's
Yeah,
having that curiosity to learn. You said people should be hunger for knowledge, and you said we shouldn't be afraid to ask questions.
yeah, that's huge.
That's golden. Now we are in our rapid fire question section. So,
Okay.
Marcus, one book everyone in business should read.
Yeah. The Search for God in Guinness by Stephen Mansfield.
Your favorite productivity tool,
Asana.
strategy or execution? That's tough.
Yeah, I would say make sure your calendar is aligned with your strategic objectives. Your calendar needs to reflect what your purpose is.
Okay. One word that describes your leadership style.
That's a good one. You, one word. Um,
A phrase.
okay. Well, a phrase I would say you have to have seat time. I'm always going to give you the opportunity to learn by putting you in that position. So you
Okay.
got to have seat time.
Okay. A piece of advice that you give to your younger self.
Slow down.
Slow down. What's
Yeah.
one favorite city that you've traveled to for business?
You cut out for that first question. What was that?
What's one favorite city that you've traveled to for business?
Munich, Germany.
Oh, awesome. I like.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So finally, what's one skill that you are currently working on?
Slowing down.
Slowing down. Of course.
Slowing down.
Where can my audience, where can they find you?
Yes. The povpodcast.com. That would be one. And then Boost USA, bu-st.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming
Yeah.
on the show. We enjoy spending this time with you. You shared a lot of insight that I know my listeners they'll find very valuable. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.